kind of the de facto standard and set of methodologies that are out there. So the PMBOK is very heavily integrated into the tool. PMI's portfolio management standard is very heavily integrated. We do have customers, though, who manage IT service organizations and follow ITIL and use the software for that, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that today.
Consider the nuances of CMMI and ISO and all that.
Yep, absolutely. I'm going to also talk a little bit today about agile development versus waterfall and how you can incorporate those different types of SDLC processes into one portfolio using a single tool. So I'm definitely going to touch on that a little bit, so I appreciate that question. So the software that we offer, WorkLenz, is offered in two different delivery methods, on-demand and on-premise. On-demand is, when you think of on-demand, what tools do you think of? Anybody? I'm sorry? Video. Maybe you've heard of like Salesforce.com, things like that. It's basically the ability to go onto the web without installing any software or servers or infrastructure in your organization, the ability with a web browser to just access the software instantly. So that's one of the things that I'm going to talk about today that we see as a really big trend in PPM software right now, is this shift from the traditional implementation of software on-premise to more of an on-demand model. We offer our software both ways. Obviously here in DC, with the government being such a big presence, we see still a lot of need for the traditional on-premise delivery method because of security and certification reasons, but we're seeing even more of a shift to the on-demand model. So that's a really interesting trend that we're paying a lot of attention to.
Is there a strategic demand for on-demand? I mean, I would think there would be lower costs, licensing costs, and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, what's so great about on-demand is that, number one, especially with the economy today, everybody wants a lower price point for their software. And the on-demand, you have lower infrastructure costs, lower overhead on your organization, but you also have a lot more flexibility, because typically when you're buying on-demand software, as opposed to paying a larger one-time upfront license fee, you pay a per month, per user fee for the software.
So would it be possible to install that in a government organization and provide services to other government organizations?
Yeah, absolutely. We've talked about that with some agencies here. I think that that's certainly kind of an area that I think the government is trying to move to, where one organization kind of is the hosting provider, and then they offer to other agencies the ability to purchase the services and the software from them.
So in terms of your on-demand product, are you guys now running have a big data center presence? Do you outsource that?
We outsource it, yeah. We partner with Rackspace is the name of our provider, and we partner with them and then provide the services through them. They're experts in data centers, we're not, so we just focus on the software and kind of where our focus area is. Good question.
I don't want to get too much into the granularity of on-demand, but for that subscription fee each month, do you get access to any new updates or whatever comes along?
So typically with on-demand, at least this is the way that our delivery model works. With your monthly fee, that includes all of your upgrades, maintenance, and subscription for the product. So that's another nice selling point to on-demand, and why I think there's so much interest in it right now is that you really do have no overhead and no worries. As new releases come out, you automatically get those. The software is always kept up to date by the provider of the software.
Last question on that is the business logic piece of that disjointed from the database, so that if the customer wants to retrieve their data, it's isolated from it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll talk a little bit about that today in terms of the business intelligence and the reporting piece of it, and also how we use web services to make that accessible to the end users or the organizations who are accessing the data. So one of the things that we also offer in addition to the software is integrated services. And we call this, for us, we call it PMO Central. So we all know what a PMO is, what a project management office is. And one of the trends that we're seeing is that organizations not only want to outsource software in an on-demand model, but they also want services in an on-demand model. So What this offering allows us to do is to augment an organization's PMO with things like help desk, learning center, training for their project managers, a reference center that has information about guidelines and best practices and benchmarking, and then also reporting and analysis. So this is one of the new services that we're offering that we're seeing a really big demand for in the industry, and that is this idea of on-demand services as opposed to your traditional consulting services that a lot of us might be used to. Any questions so far? Okay, good. I'm glad to see I'm getting a lot of questions because that makes me a little bit more excited and a little bit more interactive with you guys. So now I want to talk a little bit about what we're seeing as the state of the industry. So this is a really interesting statistic that came from Accenture, and it says that 75% of the value of the S&P 500 is in intangibles. So what do you think some of those intangibles are that make up the value of these organizations?
Intellectual property.
Yep.
Brand names. Trademark.
Brand name. What about the projects that they're doing? Knowledge, absolutely. So a lot of the value of these organizations is in the knowledge that the resources have and in the projects that they're producing. So until those projects produce end outputs or deliverables, it's really just this idea of the intangible, what you're doing, what your resources are doing to execute. So for us, we think this is a really big indicator of the importance of projects in organizations today, in the modern organization, if you will. And this is a huge number, 75% of the S&P 500. So what this means is there's a lot of money involved in doing projects. There's a big industry for being able to manage projects better. Before I came to Metier, I was in the financial services industry about 5 or 6 years ago. And right about now, I'm really, really happy to be in the project management industry. I think 5 or 6 years ago, I just got lucky and made the right move. Because this is really a great place to be, I think, right now. I think there's a really high demand for project managers and good project managers, good project management software. So here's another statistic that's interesting, and this came from the Standish Group. 84% of projects fail. I was shocked when I saw this. I think this is really surprising. But when you think about it, it just may be true. So if you take into what we just talked about on the first slide, that 75% of our value is in intangibles, and part of that is the projects that we do, but 84% of our projects are failing, we've got a problem here. There's a disjoint, and there's something that needs to be done about it.
So would the optimistic statement be 12% win?
So here's the last thing I'm going to put up here, which is that this came from the Center of Business Practices. And it says that organizations with PMOs complete twice as many projects as those without PMOs. So we kind of have a problem with the 84% project failure, but one way that we can solve this is by trying to implement better best practices, better rigor around our project management methodologies and how we execute our projects. And PMOs are one of the ways that organizations are looking to do that. So that's a little bit about kind of where we are today, why the industry has such a need for project managers, PMOs, project management software. Now what I want to do is move into kind of the meat of the presentation, which is 10 trends that we've selected that we think are really coming in the PPM software and services industry. So, number one, I've talked about this a little bit, but what we've really seen is the need for software and services integrated together. So traditionally, a lot of